This meeting is called to order. It is October 20th, 2021. I almost said 2022. 2021, we have a full quorum here. We're all here. And our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I was wondering if we have a Justice of the Peace here. I wonder if she would like to lead us in our pledge.
Okay, I'm fine. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get started, we have some guests in the audience, and I would like them to be introduced first, if that's okay. Melinda, could you help us? Because I don't know who they are.
So we have Hans, tell me if I say this right, Hans, Hallstein? Hallstein. I've always, I've known Hans for years. And then we have Tad Townsell. Hans does I'm trying to think your title, but he actually is one of the staff that does the work with Metro Plan. And then Tad is the director.
Yes. Thank y'all for coming. And we also have with us from the county clerk's office,
Mark Harrison.
in the corner. Yeah. These are our guests on the panel today, but would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Justice Christina K.G. Gully. I represent District 10, North Little Rock, Jacksonville. I serve on the Pulaski County Court.
Thank you. And we're not going to do that to our public, so y'all are good. All right. Thank y'all. All right. First on the agenda, the second on the agenda is approval of the previous the meeting minutes from October 13th, 2021. Have y'all had a chance to look at those?
Yes.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I so moved.
All right. It's a proper motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting minutes are approved. From October 13th, 2021. Okay. Next item on the agenda is November 9, 2021 special election for the City Council Library System. Appointment of election officials.
Does it end by title?
No, we don't seem to have room for things like that.
My computer's both. Thank you.
Anyone want to lead us in this?
What's that? On
On
the
the-
poll workers?
Mhm.
Oh,
So you have the list in front of you with the certification. Each commissioner has a copy of the list. There's an alternate list behind the official list.
This is the alternate list.
Yes.
Thank you for sending this in advance.
You're welcome.
question.
Yes,
And I'm
ma'am.
sure you know what it's gonna be about. But I have a question about the, for the absentee canvassing. We had the same one I made objection to last time listed.
The chief judge appointed the absentee workers. So and that's the minority one that is on there that's listed. He's worked polling locations for years. I guess he was there when I was there last time. But so we've listed who's appointed, and then we've presented them to you so you guys can review them. If you have an objection to that one, we'll let all three of you decide on that.
Did she have any other, other alternatives?
I think, did she? Because you've talked to her more.
She did not choose any alternatives. However, there are alternatives on the alternate list of poll workers.
Okay. And I don't have an issue with him working in a different capacity. I just don't know if he is going to have any issue with the new provision law requiring ID with the absentee. So
This is my appointee as a majority minority commissioner. And I feel quite confident he knows the law and will do a good job and has worked absentee before. There's nothing he's done that would prevent him from taking his appointment.
let me ask a question. In 2018, it was in 2018, was he a poll worker?
I don't recall. I was not in the poll worker assignment position at that time. I'm assuming he was. So he's been a poll worker since I've been at the Election Commission office.
So when he refused to submit ID but came in, and was he a poll worker at that time?
I think so, but I can't
And
say
brought
for
other
certain.
documentation.
I'm sorry.
And came before the commission and brought other documentation but was rejected based on that. Was he a poll worker then?
I really don't know.
What do you mean, didn't present ID?
There was
What are you talking about?
in the minutes from like 2018, there were like it was in the newspaper,
Mhm.
because there were like two people that, didn't present ID, and they instead brought documents and said they thought it was their constitutional right not to show ID. But I was curious if he was a poll worker at that time as well. But it was regarding at the polling site when they were voting. So I was curious about that. So, because he was part of the lawsuit. So I was just curious if anyone talked to him and explained to him that he has to follow the law that is required for absentee. So to me, this is an issue.
He worked the polls in 2000, both
You
cycles,
can
probably
ask.
every other election.
Even when he was on the lawsuit.
I don't know about that. Not that that's matters in this situation.
It absolutely matters in this situation, because you have to swear to uphold the Constitution, and the Constitution requires this piece.
Did you have a
So
complaint?
the poll workers that we appoint, I'm trying to say this in the correct way, but if there's a violation of election law, if there's a violation of law because a poll worker decides that they don't want to follow law because they disagree with it, it still falls on the board. So we're still, at the end of the day, responsible as a body. So I'm just making sure that if we appoint election officials that are still going to follow the law.
Was there a complaint filed against him through the state board, or
No.
was there something in writing that he didn't follow the procedures at the polling location?
No, no.
Okay, because
That's-
normally
I'm just-
you have to have we have so many poll workers, you have to have some kind of documentation that he actually did not follow the law at whatever absentee or polling location that he's at, so,
There's no requirement for the board to accept all poll workers.
right,
So,
right.
and after what's happened in the past year, it's become, after the advice of council, it's become very clear to be very careful going forward who we entrust duties with
Right.
on behalf of the county board. So that's, to me, that's why I'm asking questions.
But I just didn't know if he's being accused or what, I guess I don't know the
No.
background.
I
Because
read a Facebook post.
because other
several
poll
months-
workers have issues.
I read a Facebook post several months ago, and then Facebook went down, or I blocked, I'm not sure. I made a comment. There was also an article in the newspaper regarding this very issue when this bill was running. So that's why I'm asking the question, just making sure, will this person uphold this law in place when they don't agree with it? Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
What position?
Absentee
Is it-
clerk.
That's where it's.
That's why I'm asking the
That's what I was
question.
curious. I'm not sure exactly what position. Absentee clerk.
So we typically don't have comments until the end, but.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Again, this is my designee, and as the minority commissioner, I have the authority to do that. And he is a qualified elector. There's nothing that he doesn't have that would prevent him from serving.
So this is your designee
Exactly.
out of the 90% of the designees on here? Because she said this was the designee of the chief judge.
And fine.
So are you choosing this as your designee?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Are you
Yes.
going to say his name?
Barry Haas.
I would like to know who this person is.
Barry Haas. Haas. Barry Haas.
He's been a poll worker for many years.
He was on the lawsuit for voter ID.
I was too, so
Well, I can't remove you.
that's hardly a removable offense.
But a poll worker is not a poll workers are appointed by the board. Just as they can be decertified by the board. They can be removed by the board. So if someone's going to be working on behalf of the board and there is a action that is committed, as there was in this past election by an election official, I take that very seriously. So I just want to make sure that we are vetting our poll workers.
No.
Especially in a case where they've been vocal about not agreeing with the law, and they've also went through and refused to follow through with the law in a previous election. So I just want to make sure that we're just very diligent in that. So I will respect your
Thank you.
designee.
Thank you.
All right. So do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the election official appointments for the November 9th special election.
Have a. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carries. The appointment of election officials complete for the November 9th special election. All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for getting that to us in advance. I appreciate that. I know it's a lot. And we have our alternate so that if something happens, we don't have to come back and do this again.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's go and sign this before we go on to the next item. It's the only thing, it's almost like we need a little table.
Need more room. Oh, we need to come get that.
We're still.
And then we're too far away because I can barely hear you.
I haven't signed it yet.
There you go.
Do you need these? Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. What did I mention? Oh, I found it. I found it. Okay, the next, was there anything else on the special election? Just to make sure, okay. All right, the next item of business is discuss redistricting. Okay, and I will say that we will probably do commenting after this discussion instead of waiting to the end because it's unique, so. Okay, Melinda, go ahead.
Yes, so the next item is the redistricting, and we've invited Metro Plan. We've also invited Pages. They could not make it, but they did leave me great information. I emailed the commissioners as far as they, at this time, are, because of the time constraint, they're prohibited from actually doing the redistricting since they haven't had as much experience in it, but they said that they would offer a third eye or work alongside Metro Plan. And that's one of the things when you guys get into discussion that you'll decide, because I don't know which way you'll go. If you're interested in that, then I'll go to the board, I'll call our board member that's on Pages and let him know, because they'll have a meeting Thursday. The board has to approve it, and they'll tell us if there's a charge. And
who is that board member again? Steve?
Steve Brummett.
Okay.
And one, before Hans talks, I wanted to let you know this draft that I put together and just got out to you guys right before this meeting. If you have time to review it, it is rough. I'll probably do some more formatting and stuff, but if you have time to review it and it's all just basically not opinionated. It's just about the court rulings and laws, and it actually has our schedule in it, and it has our variances on it. I'll share this with the quorum court and with all the people that were involved with doing this redistricting.
I understand it's a draft, but we need to publish this on the website and just know that this is a draft, because I want the public to see the variances, and I want this just to be a very, very public and transparent process from all the way through. So,
and that brings up another thing. I would like to put this, not just the PDF or whatever, but on our website. I haven't got to iron out all the details with Jody and stuff, but I'd like to put this on there and figure out how, when you guys get into discussion, I know we're going to want input, and I've got to get all that kind of, and I'll keep.
well, I think that and we can discuss it at the end, but we could utilize the PCEC and take in comments from there, and then
People can email.
Yes.
yeah, so we can talk about the end.
That sounds great.
All right. So you mentioned that there were, we kind of went over the different options. So why don't you go ahead and discuss those options, if you don't mind, and then we'll talk to, well, we only have one entity here at the moment, and then I'll discuss why Secretary of State's office is not here.
So from our last meeting that we had last Wednesday, I basically gathered the two options the commissioners discussed, and that was either doing the redistricting yourselves, or not hiring, but, well, it is kind of hiring, an outside organization to do the lines and work with you. So I went ahead and I called the Secretary of State's office, and they let me know the main person that would have came was already had a commitment for this meeting time, but they did let me know that they would, as far as training, they can train someone during business hours, and Their software they use, Shelby, from the next entity I talked to, GIS, the Geographic Information Systems for the state. The software that they're using online is Autobound. So it's the online version, and it does not have the capability of printing the reports and the main things that we'll need to adopt and show people for public, however we go about doing this. It doesn't have that. So Shelby, I talked to him after the Secretary of State's office did say that they would train, someone if they wanted to do this. I think it's just a quick class, I'm not sure. But so Shelby let me know that he would print any reports and stuff that we need because they have the main license to the Autobound software version. It's not the online version. So there's that. That's if you guys are interested in doing it yourself. Then our other option that I first called Pages, and Pages let me know that they were very interested in working alongside Metro Plan, but Alex Harper did let me know that with the time constraint, because they haven't done redistricting, it's very, it takes a little bit to just do those lines and everything, and so he would not feel good at this time doing it. So, but if we would like to, and then I'll get to Metro Plan, because they're actually here so they can talk and go over things with you on how they do it. But if we would like for them to offer someone to work alongside Metro Plan, like a third eye, then if we let them know first thing tomorrow morning. So if I know from this meeting, I can actually call, and I've already contacted our board member that's on Pages, and he will bring it up at the board meeting, and then they can discuss, and they'll discuss whether they will do it, and they just couldn't speak for the board, and whether there will be a charge for it. So they'll, do that. And then I've, of course, talked to Metro Plan, and I've talked to Casey and Hans and Tab, and and we did work with them 10 years ago, so I kind of am familiar, but I know in some discussion with Hans and the way that they work and doing it, he's more fresher with it, and he was actually giving me some really good information. I let him know, I said, this will be good information to share with the commissioners. So I thought he could kind of go over what they do and how it's done, and you guys can ask him questions and everything, if that's good.
Yeah, I was gonna read an email from the Secretary of State's office, just to make sure we're being completely transparent. And my conversation with the Secretary of State's office was regarding the Autobound Light, and that training could be provided, and it would take about 30 minutes. It's a very basic program. It's a free version of the Citygate, which is being used by the state districts that they're doing for the Board of Apportionment. So he had sent me an email today. He said just to follow up on the ongoing, and we'll post this as well as the public information, because to me it just prevents us having to chase FOIA requests. So I know I've been getting them. Just to follow up on the ongoing discussions concerning redistricting in Pulaski County, I want to reach out and apologize for not being able to attend the Election Commission meeting tonight. However, this training session will need to take place during regular office hours, Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 4:30. Given the amount of other entities I'm assisting with this software in addition to regular day-to-day tasks, I cannot commit to training or assisting outside of those hours in order to keep our office involvement in fair, nonpartisan, and evenly balanced for all entities. As you and I previously discussed over the phone, I agree to train anyone on the Commission's choosing on the redistricting software that our office is providing as soon as possible. You mentioned the possibility of training some of your staff, which I'm open to as well. If that is still a possibility, I'm happy to oblige. While I understand that the PCEC needs to make a decision as to what to do concerning how they wish to proceed with redistricting, keep in mind that there are no deadlines or timelines for the completion of this process. As soon as we learned the census data was going to be delayed We immediately began advising all entities that they must complete their work as quickly and as efficiently as they can as soon as the data became available. The most important deadline is allowing enough time for the county clerk's office to make all the necessary changes in the voter registration database. Just as a reminder, this software is being provided as a courtesy and offered free of charge. The original intention of this software was to assist counties, school districts, and cities that have not been able to secure an actual vendor up to this point. In addition to that, our office is absolutely committed to all entities involved in redistricting. We have continuously fielded phone calls from local jurisdictions, provided information, and worked closely with the Arkansas GIS office to make this process as smooth as possible. And then it just gave us some login credentials, and of course we're redacting that. And that's from Josh Bridges, Arkansas Secretary of State Election Systems Analyst. So we weren't able to provide enough, notice, and of course there's some conflicts. I know Shelby had another appointment, so I don't know if he's going to get here or not. And then of course with Pages, I know they have another conflict. So with that, we will open up to Metro Plan and whoever wants to go first. And if you could maybe even position yourself to make sure that the camera can see you, because we do live stream all our meetings, and just speak up so that you could be heard through the live stream.
Just to make sure everybody understands what the Metro Plan is. Metro Plan is a regional council of governments, a metropolitan planning body. We are required, mandated by the federal government, designated by the state government, but made up of local governments. Metro Plan is our board of directors, which is the mayors and county judges in a 4-county region around of central Arkansas: Pulaski County, Faulkner County, Saline County, and Lonoke County. So that is Metro Plan. We are staff and do their bidding. We have done redistricting for all our jurisdictions, and we offer it to anybody in our footprint as a public jurisdiction, and we have done that for years. I know when I was mayor of Conway, I used Metro Plan in 2000 and 2010. Pulaski County has used it at least in 2010, if not prior to that. We're doing it now with a number of jurisdictions and school districts inside our footprint as well. We do it free of charge. We do it as a service to our members. That being said, I'm Marlon Perkins. I sell insurance. This is Jim Eratz, Brussels Alligators. I'll let him explain the very process of what goes on and what goes into it. Hans?
Okay. Hans Haustein is my name. I worked with Metro Plan 22 years, so I've been through a few of these redistricting processes all the way from 2000, 2010, and now in 2020. It's really straightforward. What we would do is take the Pulaski County JP boundaries, overlay with the census block. That's the building block of the census data. Look at the deviation from the mean to see which districts are out of balance and propose an alternative that would show minor changes as one alternative. We can go about and create you can turn over the apple cart and create all new districts, basically not taking anything into consideration, to start from scratch. Like I said, the minor changes, that's what we approach. Most jurisdictions want the least amount of change going in. They want, just enough to get them back into balance so that they're good with the law. But in some cases, a place that's grown, showed tremendous population, either gain in one area, loss in another area, may want to look at changing up some of the boundaries to better reflect what the area looks like now, and we're open to do that. It's all done with maps and numbers is what we look at on there. We try to use the most logical boundaries, such as rivers, streams, major highways, roadways, and keep communities of interest intact and not split them in our process the best we can using the major features within the geography. But in the case where you can't get it to balance, you do have to make some modifications and may split some areas that, it's impossible to create a population balance without doing a split. And we've seen those areas that are typically in smaller towns where you have a little bit tighter balance of what gets you within that 5% of the mean or 10% total deviation. But like I said, I worked in 2010 with the JP districts, created the one current districts that are out there now. The board approved those, how they looked at that point. Questions along those lines? I don't know if that's kind of a nutshell. I can go into deep detail on how I create lines if you would like, but sometimes that may just be more than you want to know.
Who all gets involved in creating lines?
There's two GIS staff, Geographic Information Systems, in our office. Jeff Runder and myself have worked on the redistricting process, and we just basically look at the data and create those.
And none of our mayors and county judges do. They can send back requests to us, say, could you tweak? I know Jacksonville just sent back a request to move a line to where it perfectly aligns with US 67, 167 versus not. Makes it an easier job for the clerk's office sometimes too, but we do not get involved. It's strictly the GIS guys.
And in the past, we've used, if we'd had the state legislative boundaries, the state senate and reps, we would try to use those to create, where we don't create precinct splits, because we're aware of what they have to deal with when they create ballots. And a ballot with one person on it is a problem. We want to create the fewest number of ballot styles as possible, but since we don't have that information, you're left to take the best boundary you can take, and hopefully the state rep office and the state senate districts will follow close to them and not create kind of a zigzag pattern across that line, creating all sorts of issues with the ballot styles and precinct splits. They're very aware of that process, and I've been through it with them, and I've seen what happens and worked with them through the last time on that, on these precinct splits.
Do you have any more questions? Is this new to
Ponder,
you?
maybe.
Okay.
Go ahead, go
I
ahead.
have a question. Okay, so you are able to create multiple maps based on some things that we suggest or would like to see, and then we could review them as a body and make decisions on what maps to present to the public, and you in turn would, make those adjustments and publicly present those maps when we do our meetings. It seems you have many years of experience in doing mapping.
Yes, the process would be if we created a map, okay, you like the basic look of it, but there's a few areas you want to change. We can go in there and make those changes and see if it still meets the population criteria on that. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And we can tell you, okay, the modifications you made, yes, they will fit within that plus or minus 5%, or no, they don't.
What software do you use?
We use ArcGIS. It's just a GIS software. Some of these other things run on top of a GIS software, but it's a kind of an industry-wide leader in GIS software.
That's what I'm certified in. So let me ask some questions about, because one thing that I found very disappointing with that map that was supplied to the JPs is there was no identifying information. No precinct information, there's no street information, there's no lake, river. I couldn't tell where the city of Maumelle was. We need to be able to see the topography, we need to be able to see the city information, we need to be able to see, I need to see where Highway 10 is.
Sure.
So I also have an issue with even the way when they were doing the congressional lines, they don't have the geography, the lay of the land. So you can't even see, and I went into some of those the software, some of the free software was playing around with it as well, seeing how I can move around the different districts within the state of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult to do when you can't see where the Washingtonian Range ends and where, the other areas begin. What kind of availability do you make to the folks that are using this on the other end, these maps, to see it not just in a paper, because I'm an anti-paper person, but visually, so that we can see how that line is crossing over a highway, or where it's intersecting with the city, or if it's cutting through a community, or even an HOA. So how can we see that and not just on a paper format?
Well, we can create a PDF. It's a very high resolution. We'll have all your road names on that. You can zoom in and around it. What that was created on is basically an 8.5 by 11 map. So an 8.5 by 11 map, you can't show a lot of detail. You're just showing basic information. You're saying, here's the JPs, here's a version that would put the population in balance without creating a large map on that. But we have a large, if you don't like paper maps, we can create a PDF PDF. If you wanted a nice big paper map, we've got a 42-inch plotter. We can plot one out, and you can look over it across the table and see. We have topography we can put behind it. We have all the streets, rivers, lakes, streams, city limit boundaries, you name it, as far as geographic information. That it depends on how much you want to look at. Because at some point, the map gets really busy. So you want to choose what you want to display on the map carefully so that it communicates what you're trying to show.
So currently, because you want to see the overlay of what the previous districts look like and how they're changing into those districts. And I guess that's kind of my issue, is that's one of the reasons I did the certification with Ezra last time, is I was on the other side of this where I was assigning the voters and had to make those tough calls on when it's, when the precinct line went straight through an apartment building, which happened a lot.
Yes, there's some
In
problems
2011.
with the Little Rock School District boundary for a while because it was set in, I think it was 1985, before that
Right.
land was developed. So when those houses went in, yes, that boundary went right through houses. So you had to make a call whether it was, is that in the district or is it Pulaski County? So there are some issues with that, for sure. And that's something I can't correct. I have to just display what the boundary is. And I think the state GIS office has done the best job of anyone trying to rectify that boundary between the Little Rock School District and Pulaski County School District to produce something that, reflects what that boundary should be. Whether it splits a house, that's still an issue.
So is there not availability for us to have some type of viewable option with actually looking at a map? And I'm not talking about a digital map. I'm not talking about just a PDF or a print map. I mean a digital map so that we can zoom in and zoom out and see actual satellite images.
We could create a KMC file or a KML file, which would go into Google Maps. We could bring that into a Google Map and just display the current JP districts and any sort of modifications we may make to it.
Is that a screen up here? Can that be the display point for?
It could be. It would be displayed, within Google Maps. You could zoom in and see what the boundaries lay within that and whatever you have to project it.
Is there a
Now, whether
projector?
that screen comes down and that projector works, that's two
Oh,
different
that's,
things.
yeah, well, that may be in that little room back there.
Yeah.
But you could produce a map that we could all look at, public could be in the room looking at it digitally and make any objections or concerns about this community is cut in half or those kinds of things.
Yes, in that fashion, you could scroll around Google Maps and zoom in and pull in what imagery they have in that KMZ file or KML, either way, however you want to bring it in. We'll overlay that line and you can view it that way. It's a simple step to do on that, but it's just an export out from our software.
And you could easily make a map with the overlay of the old and the
Yes,
proposed
you
lines
can
and the
do
changes
one
that
where
we
it
can
shows
see.
the old, you can toggle it on, toggle it off, so you can see what the changes are.
Yes, Melinda.
Didn't we, 10 years ago, I remember putting, there was a few different options that we were checking out, the commissioners were, and I remember it being on our website, and we were able to scroll in and stuff. I can't remember if that was PDF or
It
if that was
probably
something I
PDF.
worked with you on.
You can do a high-resolution PDF that'll show all the road street name information, so you can
Maybe
find
that's
out.
what.
A citizen would want to know where they fall within that. They can zoom in on their
We
street
did.
with the detail.
We had that, and then at the public meeting, besides being able, because you can only look at one, we had the options on a big poster board. And put it on those easels so that you could just walk up and see. We did the big copies. It wasn't just the.
The 3 foot by 4 foot, we had 8 options.
Yeah, but I think,
We had
in
4
today's
and we had
society,
all
we're
three
used to looking at
dimensional.
satellite images. I mean, people
There were
drop
8
a
total.
pin and they send that to people. So they're more familiar with that kind of technology.
You'll probably want to present things in a couple different, same map,
Mhm.
a couple different ways to make sure you get clarity.
But, I mean, for me, I want to be able to see exactly where and also take in consideration the changes that's coming. So I live down Highway 10, which is a nightmare. I know that's changing that entire, structure of that road right now. So same thing with the I-30. I don't even go down there. I have no idea what it looks like right now. I avoid that area, but I know that's kind of changing the structure of that area, and I don't know how that's going to look going forward. But those are some things. I don't know if you can project the changes there. Did you have any other questions?
Yeah, have you created any maps at this point?
There was one map that was requested by Judge Hyde, just to look and see if you could do a minimal change with the JP districts, and created one for him.
Any others?
That's all.
For Pulaski County.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I was talking about with last.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I don't have any questions. I think great presentation and good information.
Yes.
I just wanted for Tab to explain, you mentioned something about 167, that Jacksonville said in something. Can you go over that again?
It was just a board map for the city of Jacksonville. There was a line that got very close to 167, and was not moved over. So, and the judge called us after a public discussion about that at the Jacksonville City Council meeting. He asked us to tweak that line. I think it involved about 40 houses.
So, can I ask a question about that? Who's responsible for drawing those lines? Who's responsible in the city of Jacksonville to draw those lines?
The city of Jacksonville City Council is
Okay.
responsible for adopting. Who draws them? Some cities it can be the city
Okay,
GIS.
so who's responsible for the lines is the city council?
City Council. is
Who
actually-
called you to ask you to move a line?
Judge, Mayor Johnson.
This isn't a draft map. We sent it an alternative, and they wanted to modify it, see if it would work, if you did a modification. Much like your process would be here, if you saw a map and said, we want, can you move this over to this roadway and let tip the population balance? It's the same situation.
So, hold on a minute.
They do the cities too.
I
So
know,
thought-
I just saw
afraid-
something that sounded like a conflict to me. But you understand that the only entity that could request a modification to a map is this entity.
Florida County. In the cities,
No, I'm talking about like, for the county board of election commissioners, the county judge couldn't ask you to modify a map.
we understand that. We understand it has to be this month.
I think there's two different things being discussed. We're talking about the court districts, and you were saying the city council,
Yeah,
that the mayor.
No, I understood. I just heard
Oh.
that there's a city council that's responsible for drawing a map, but I also heard a mayor called and got to
Right.
move something, and that just
That's
kind
what was stated.
of was a red flag to me.
It was perfectly on the open.
I'm sorry.
It was perfectly on the open.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I just want to say that caught my attention. That's why I wanted to make sure that I was understanding you correctly. And in my opinion, the city council is the one that's drawing the map. That should be with the mayor there in Jacksonville with the city council. I mean, we shouldn't have any kind of conflict like that going on.
They probably directed the mayor.
Okay, it doesn't, we just need to,
That's
we need to just, they're here to do a job, let them do their job, and the conflict of interest and all that needs to stay, let them do their job. I'm sorry, from this perspective.
Well, I think clearly you just perform a task, and the bodies just make the decisions. And if we see something that's improper, we'll say, hey, this doesn't look right, and it can be readjusted. And it sounds to me like that's what happened in Jacksonville. There's a problem, the mayor asked, you did a map and present it to the council, and then they will decide.
How it went was, there was an alternative one map on there, that alternative one, and they made the change to it, up an alternative two, and it was resent with the new population number, so this is the one they have to look over with the alternative one, so.
So I'm gonna ask you some more detailed type questions then. We asked for 4 different types of map based on 4 different types of criteria. How long do you think that would take?
When you say criteria, what?
Compact,
Okay.
certain types of things, because I look at these variances, we have some they're pretty out there. I mean, we have districts that are negative 14%, others that are 17% down. You have some that they're going to be adjusted 17%, others that are 13. So there's going to be some, right, okay. So my question would be, if we ask for 4 maps based on compactness, the typical requirements, how long would it take, if you're sitting in a room doing this work, how long do you think that would take?
Well, it depends on how much modification you want to make to the boundaries. I mean, I can go in with minimal modifications and create 4 alternatives, within a day. If you want to really change things up, it takes a little longer, depending on where you want to start to draw boundaries.
Are you very familiar with the current maps?
Yes.
Do the current maps follow all those requirements?
It's a pretty, in my view, it's not a legal view, that there's nothing that stood out as just being totally, in a gerrymander shape that would create just an automatic flag.
Do they cross city lines?
Do they cross city lines?
Yeah, are your city lines cut into half?
You'd have to, just the way the population is on it.
Do they cross major highways?
They will follow it where they can, but in places they'll have to leave that. They can't use it for the entire boundary.
I mean, do we have districts that are in North Little Rock and also in Little Rock?
We do have crossing the river. Yep. I have to think of the map in my head. It does cross on that southeast side, but that's a very low population area.
Do we cut literally like communities in half, like communities of interest in half?
Well, it depends on how you define community of interest on that.
I mean, I'm gonna go out. I mean, I know West Little Rock really well, so Pebble Beach, is it cut in half?
Well, in that case, the census geography creates problems where we've got very large blocks that are difficult to split, or they're difficult to create boundaries without splitting blocks. And when you split blocks, you have to do population estimates. And when you start doing population estimates, you start to create more uncertainty of the population number. So when you go and do this process, you try to avoid as many population splits as possible. Because when you get into that, you create more uncertainty. And when you have uncertainty, you have more areas to be challenged.
So we make minimal changes, which I just have a hard time believing that would be possible, especially with the shifts and changes, especially out west and parts of like Cabot and Sherwood in that area. But if we had minimal changes, how long do you think it would take to do 4 maps?
Well, minimal change is just moving. Minimal change could be a lot of change, but it's just enough to move the population, because you're going to have to take some population from West Little Rock, migrate it through a couple of JPs to get it to the eastern side to bring up the population there. So those boundaries all kind of start to shift westward.
Right.
That would be a minimal change alternative on there, something along those lines.
4 maps would take how long to create? Versions, different versions.
Kind of a finalized version. We could do that within a week if that's the only thing I'm doing, which this is something we do kind of on top of a regular workload.
What's your regular work?
Transportation planning, and we're just in the process of starting our long-range transportation plan update. So this is done as a service for our entities, and we're funded mainly with transportation dollars, and the money that goes to pay for this comes out of our general fund, which is paid in by the entities that are part of the Metro plan. So this is above and beyond a service that we do every 10 years, and we're glad to do it, and it helps our communities because it's a process, and if you've gone through it a few times, you know what to do, and you can usually produce something that they're happy with.
What are your thoughts about having someone from Pages sit in on that process the entire time?
I have no problem with that at all. Now, it would be, that's not my call on that. That would be my executive director here would
Other people have done it before. That's not an issue with us.
Do we have in our office any current large JP maps? Or do we have?
We used to.
I don't know
We
if
used
they're
to.
printed, we have digital maps, I don't know if we have any printed maps. We try not to print them unless absolutely necessary.
It's a big map.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the county bring it down. The county don't do that.
Yeah, where I live's not even on the old map, so.
I have a huge one, I got on the wall.
Mm-hmm. You got it from here.
It can't
We
be
used to
found.
print them.
Yeah, which is what makes me curious, because if where I live's not even on the map, then a lot of places
Is it- where-
over
is it-
there is not where, on the map.
Is it a new neighborhood that way?
Mhm.
It's still in Pulaski County.
2013, it's actually City of Little Rock. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm gonna be really frank and honest here. I've seen some recent articles about some debate regarding the congressional redistricting, and I'm not going to give any opinion about congressional redistricting. It's not my place, and it's not appropriate. But I would feel pretty uncomfortable about anyone involved in this redistricting being involved in any lawsuits with that redistricting or pushing any ballot issues. So my question is there any type of conflict with that currently with
Staff
Metro
will be
Plan?
doing nothing in regard to that, towards those issues. We would not be filing any lawsuits or being a party to anything like that. Are my board members, I can't speak to them even collectively, but individually especially. But the staff will be dealing with this. It's not going to be involved in anything.
How can we be guaranteed there's not going to be any outside influence from the board? And I say that because there are some conflicts, perception-wise, because we do have, and I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way, but because the county judge is on the board, and this is the quorum court, I just want to make sure there's no interaction between that side of it with the staff. And this creates this kind of a conflict because the staff, again, reports to the county board here, right? So if the board tells the staff to do something, I mean, I'm following this train of thought, so I'm just kind of asking some questions. If we say, hey, we want these maps and we want X, Y, Z, and someone comes and say, no, go do this, we wouldn't know if something else was changed or done. So how do we?
If you engage us, we will be dealing with you. And that's who will take our instructions.
Do you understand my concern?
I understand. And I can say that he's not going to step in, or the mayor of Jacksonville, or
I'm like any elected official who's, period. I don't care. I'm any elected official.
We're going to let Hans and Jeff take their professional opinions and their long experience and draw up the maps per your instructions.
I don't think elected officials should ever draw maps, period.
Well, if they could run this software, I'd be totally surprised.
I mean, ideally, I would prefer to have a staff member in the room, but that's impossible. We can't afford to have them in the room. Everybody decided to have elections during redistricting. But
So if you wanted to have Melinda step in with us, that would be perfectly fine. We have no problem.
if we did choose to go one way or the other, I would want to feel comfortable knowing that they could go in at any time and check in on the process.
Absolutely.
You are neighbors
Yes.
in the same building.
We share sugar. the cost of
Exactly.
means.
What is, let me go to the county clerk since she's here. How much time do you think you need to get all the voters assigned?
It depends on what the changes are. So I can't say that we need 2 weeks, 3 weeks right now. It just depends on what the changes are. But we're gonna get it done no matter what.
So my understanding is that the Senate and House districts are not going to be ready till mid-November, probably end of November, correct? Do you know the timelines for the cities? Have you heard anything?
Cities don't have timelines per se. They can kind of do it when they want, but some have got on board and created changes, but if they don't make changes, that's what the boundaries are at that point, so.
Okay.
I have requested, I started working with, Hans gave me some contact information, but I started working with the cities and the school districts. I know Shelby said like Little Rock School District.
They already started,
No,
right?
Yeah, he told me the actual dates, and I was getting a timeline that if everything goes accordingly, I think theirs is like November 25th or 18th, I think. But I'll have to give you the dates. The other people I've contacted.
No, Little Rock School District, we have to approve theirs, right? That was one that we had to approve. There's one school that it's in the law.
Oh, you're Little Rock City. Because what Little Rock City is different than everybody's, and I pulled
I
those
thought it was a
laws
school
today.
board that was different.
The school board, the state did have to do it, because Little
that's
Rock was
right, that's
under,
right.
that's what you're,
Yeah, that's right. We didn't have to do this thing.
But the reason I threw the school districts in there and the cities is because I know that the Metro Plans does some of our cities, but it helps when they can see their lines too. I mean, because they're gonna be, before a lot of them got it done before us. But it's not working that way.
So we have
Maumelle-
till December 1st to approve the school board zone maps.
And Madam Chair, I just want you to, because you did work in the elections over there, with the software that we have with ES&S, we have to go in and manually change things. So it's not like we can push a button and everybody's uploaded and it's changed. So that's why I said it just depends on the changes.
So are y'all having to go through and clean any street blocks or anything first, or?
No, not for this commission.
So I'm looking at these deadlines. The 1st of December is the deadline for us to do the school zone maps approval. City of Little Rock's redoing their maps. We don't know when they're going to be. And you said Jacksonville's doing theirs.
Probably pretty close to adopting one there. We've got it, this Maumelle maybe, I'm trying to think of the list off the top of my head.
Maumell's doing?
Maumelle may be doing theirs in-house. We provided them data and provided an option to them that they may work in-house with theirs.
They're holding a redistricting workshop October 25th and present the proposed map at a second workshop. They're wanting to propose the map in November or December before being voted on by the city council shortly after. So it looks like they're looking at December.
Wow.
I asked him for approximate. I'm gathering those right now. So, and I'll of course keep you three informed of those dates as I gather them.
Okay.
Sherwood's doing theirs as well. Not us, but they're doing their own.
Riceville's one we've done. They've had a turnover with the mayor, so I'm not sure of the process. There's just lots.
Riceville had some issue with the census data, didn't they?
Yes.
'Cause they were short.
In that case, it's incarcerated population, so that's really not considered in the redistricting process because they're.
In-house.
Yeah, it throws it off. So it's more a city issue on their population. But with all that said, there's going to be lines coming in at all different times.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to try to consider somebody, if something's on the ground already, can we follow that? Because it's just not established yet. So we have to do the best we can. Hopefully the lines will match to some degree or create a large enough split that it doesn't put one voter in the splits where you create that.
That's, this late date to get the census really makes that problematic. I mean, in years past, or previous times, you would get the House and Senate and then lay everything over that.
Right, you could have.
And the school elections were held on different times, so it didn't matter if their lines were different, but we're doing the election at the same time now.
We don't have constables, do we?
We do, but it's just north and south of the river. We just have two.
Yeah, that's easy.
That's the easiest one of all.
Now, I want to add that we worked with the clerk's office in getting their records updated by taking the pages, address files, and tagging it with the precinct splits and all that information. We've worked extensively with the precincts last time around and helped them clean up various data to get streamline the process
That's when
with
we
the clerk's
cleaned up
office. So,
all the precincts. We cleaned up everything because we had voters that sometimes were in a different area. And I think,
I remember very
yeah.
well.
And Hans, I think that they have a good system with the county clerk's office now too. But I wanted to dig into, me and Terry were talking yesterday with Jason's, whatever they do on, so.
it's been a while since I've sent an update. It was Michael Razor who I've worked with over there on the data side. Sent me an update with the precincts that we have, because I have that in the GIS and the splits. But it's been a while since I've given an update on that to the.
Okay, so you are providing that information currently?
Yes.
Just, it's more data driven than hand. I mean, when they, but like when we get done with the redistricting, you'll be able to provide this split, all of the splits and the zones and stuff, and they can, it's still work, but it's still easier than what it used to be.
I'm not real familiar with how they enter it manually over there, but I can give them addresses and tell them what precinct splits they belong in.
Yes.
Do you have some questions, Commissioner Scott?
No, I think it's been pretty much covered.
All right, so discussion.
So do we need to come up with our policy direction on how we're going to do this or begin this and put it on our website so that the public can understand what we're talking about?
We need to select first which way we're going.
Well, do we have to go one direction, or do we have multiple directions going? What I'm saying is, well, let me spell it out.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, do we want to pursue Josh and the training it on the maps as well as pursue other ideas at the same time?
I don't think it's feasible to do both, honestly.
I think it would complicate things.
Part of the issue with the Secretary of State's office is they're not making anything available during the evening, which is, I'm just going to be honest, I think that's ridiculous. You know, unfortunately, I'm going through physical therapy right now, and so I literally can't spare another minute. And you know, I hope that they would. I understand that everybody's busy, but they need to. And I said this in my email back that as kindly as I could, but county boards are volunteer boards. And not only that, the public likes to come to meetings when they can in the evening. So not making themselves available after hours is not a partisan issue. It's just common sense.
Are we going to have the people from Pages come speak to us?
Pages is not going to be available for redistricting.
Okay.
So I talked to them extensively, like months and months and months and months ago. They want to get involved in this. They want to learn. They already do, and I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm going to explain it the right way, but they do work with like the county assessor.
Yes, there's the CAMA, the assessing parcels and all that. So they have the data, the backbone of the data
Right.
on there. And we pull a lot of that data in when we do the address matching, so forth with the precinct splits, and that's what goes to clerk's office when they get the report. Basically, that's where that information comes from pages.
So what they have offered is this. They have offered, because they understand the issues here, that we have some perceptions, some conflicts, but we also have some issues that we have to get this done, right? We can't source an outside vendor. Secretary of State's office has limited resources that they're truly only really providing during the day to tiny counties. That doesn't really do any reporting or maps. So we're very limited to what we have available if we want to engage the public and have something that's very intuitive. So Pages said that they would, if we tell them by tomorrow, because they have a meeting, they have to get permission too because they have a board, that they could utilize their guy that does this kind of work to sit in with the technical folks at Metro Plan that actually does the work and observe and learn throughout the whole process, which would give us kind of like a third party consultant on behalf of us.
But they would have to be paid potentially.
Possibly, but most likely not. I mean, if they did, we have other funds that we could shift from different buckets. I think it ended up probably working out that we probably wouldn't, because they do already do stuff for the county, from my understanding, and hopefully that would end up working out that they could just do this. So
Yeah, Alex did say, Christy, that he couldn't speak for the board,
Right.
but that he kind of thought that too, that there may not be a coach.
right.
But he just couldn't commit.
So it's kind of, it's where we are. It's I would be left out of this process with the Secretary of State's office because they left me out during the day training. So the only way we could do it with the Secretary of State's office, it would be either you two or we would have to have a staff member do it. So I'm just going to leave it out there of just discuss. I was trying to come up with some solutions that would work. Trying to think outside the box and think of a good way of collaborating to
I'm
prevent.
going to ponder that before I answer about what I'm going to do with that. I may have some time that I could take to do that.
I can't even imagine that the training that we take in 30 minutes from the Secretary of State on that system is going to even come close to what we can get right across the hallway with MetroPlan, and they can provide all of the different maps as we would request.
I'm not speaking as a alternative necessarily to that, so I'm not speaking against MetroPlan.
Okay, if you have time to spend to do something that some professional is already going to do for us, we still have to review it and determine if it's appropriate. It seems like the right thing to do. But, if you do want the Pages person to come and sit in with them, or we could have some staff to come sit in with them, take a look at it. David could take off work and come sit in with them to see how it operates. In fact, I would encourage you. I'm sure you would be happy to have one or two or three of the commissioners come in. It's a pretty incredible operation you have going on over there. I mean, if you're looking at one county entity looking over another county entity, I don't see what's the point in Pages being an oversight.
Pages isn't, their board isn't made up of elected officials. So that's the difference.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
Did you say that Pages board was made up of elected officials?
It's not made up of elected officials.
It's not.
Okay.
So it just removes the conflict out.
I can see where there will be concern with elected officials serving on a board making a decision about the redistricting.
Yeah, but that board's not making decisions. We're making the decisions. They're just doing the work. I mean, it will never come before your board, what you're drafting up for us. I just want to make that very clear.
I know I don't have a vote on stuff there, but just for myself as a voter and elected official, it needs to be no conflict when it comes to making a decision. Redistricting, period, there shouldn't be any conflict of interest in making the decisions.
And I agree with that.
And that's what we're trying to do, is how do we remove any potential conflicts? Because, I've watched this past few months, and it's just been, you can't make anyone happy, for one. People are going to be angry no matter what you do. Perception is an issue, no matter what. So how can we calm any fears of any kind of, biases in the beginning to make sure that does not come into play? Yes, ma'am.
We're speaking on the corner court map? On
On,
the JP's map, or just the maps in general?
no, maps in general.
Okay. So I was going to say, I hope that you all would consider supporting our resolution that we passed with the map that Metro Plan drafted.
I have a thought, suggestion, Madam Chair. A way to alleviate any concern about who's doing what and how we're going about it. We need to post a document, a public document, as to what criteria we're going to use, and follow it based on some of this information that's in this draft Melinda provided to us.
And I do have a copy of a memo that we actually drafted to Metro Plan that we could use that format, but based on whatever criteria you guys have, we can just insert it. And
Well, I
we
have
did-
some thoughts of things that we could put in a memo depending on which way we go, but first we would need a decision
And the decision on what?
on which way we go.
I make a motion that we go with Metro Plan.
I think I'd like to offer an alternate motion to that,
Okay.
that we, that the board does engage Metro Plan to draw some maps at our direction with whomever, if it's Pages, or if it's our staff, whoever that we designate, and we could designate multiple parties to be there on our behalf as well. That's my motion.
Okay. I would like to add something to that motion. That no map should be reviewed by any board member prior to being reviewed by this body. By Metro Plan's board members.
Do you want to repeat that motion?
No, I would not. I think Melinda's writing it down though. Does that make sense?
And maybe we need to come up with our terms of engagement and think about that a little bit before we move.
Well, I think it's to get Pages on board. They need tomorrow to do
Okay.
that.
All right.
But we can get the plan together, but we can, and we need to make sure Metro Plan is able to do what we just said, that they can make sure that no board member reviews the maps prior to this body reviewing maps.
We will have to review whether
We are subject to FOI too, and we'll have to review whether those documents, once created, are something that can be requested.
I'm pretty sure they can't be requested if they haven't been reviewed by this body. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if the board isn't supposed to review, will you be able to sit in with Metro Plan to do, or would you want staff to do that?
We're
Designate
talking
staff?
about the board
Because-
Metro
Metro
Plan.
plan.
Metro
We're talking
Plan,
about this board.
Our board.
Okay.
Metro Plan Board.
Oh, okay.
It would fall under the same, this would be a good time for the county attorney to be here, but I think we'd fall under the same rules that, for the Board of Apportionment and for, because we are the apportionment as well as the state congressional. Those maps could not be made available until they were publicly made available.
We don't have the luxury of being a state agency. We have to follow state FOI law like a city or county does.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to review whether that's even possible.
Well, they would provide the maps per our request, 4, 6, 8, however many you wish. We would review them collectively in a meeting. They would essentially become public then.
Right, no, I'm saying they cannot be reviewed prior to that, until they come to this meeting. They would not become public until they're at this meeting.
And is that not what?
I don't know if we can comply with that.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody walked up to us between our engagement and delivery to staff for this meeting, putting the packets, I don't know if we would have to respond to them and give them the maps. And I don't want to say,
Would that not be the same thing that we would be obliged to release via FOI if we were doing it, if someone requested it? I mean, what's the difference, I guess is what I'm saying.
there's a potential for it being considered a working papers, but that tends to be a very porous defense
Mhm.
in FOI cases, litigation. So I couldn't guarantee the delivery on that particular provision of that motion.
I know you can't request a working map right now until it's made publicly available from the Board of Apportionment. And I know you couldn't do that with congressional maps until it was made publicly available. I know you can't do that with a bill until it's filed.
I think those rules of FOI apply to the state differently than they apply to local.
Will they also apply to the vendor?
They also apply to what?
That to those vendors, because they can't make those available.
Understand, but that's the state's business.
Right.
They dictated different FOI rules to cities and counties.
Perhaps we should ask the county attorney.
We would do the same thing with our attorney,
Of course.
just to make sure.
I'll modify mine to say contingent upon FOIA.
All in favor?
Wait a minute, let's read the motion here. Because
Is there anything, does anyone need to add any more to the
I
motion?
have a comment before you vote on this. What's the big deal if for some reason it was requested by FOI?
No. My motion was to say that no board member of Metro Plan.
Oh, I'm good with that.
Yeah, that was what I was saying. So that just, again, all the conflicts would be removed.
I mean, the FOI law is the law, so whatever the law
Yeah,
is, it is.
exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like logically, if you had a bunch of map drafts out that people FOI, that would get confusing. You think you wouldn't be able to provide them till they're
I feel
final.
pretty confident you can, but I'm not a lawyer.
Because maps are, I mean, cause a lot of confusion. I'm just thinking, people FOI'd them. But yeah, we need to check with the
Don't
attorney.
try anything. I was just saying.
So what is our motion on the table here?
Will you repeat that?
I have that the board engages with Metro Plan to draw up the plans contingent upon no map being reviewed by any Metro Plan board member before it is drawn up.
And reviewed by the
Contingent.
county board, contingent upon FOIA and reviewed by the county board of election commissioners. I probably should add added any elected official.
But what is your contingency going to affect?
The contingency affects just the review. If someone wanted, I mean, with, the review's still there, but if someone asks for it, then I can't prevent them. We can't prevent them. But I really do think that we're
And we don't
covered. I think we're
need,
covered
we don't need
there.
that in our motion.
No, the contingency would just remove that out. It's the same thing, we do a contingency in our motion if we have to change something and we allow someone else to go make a change. Right?
So
He's
that
a
doesn't
lawyer,
mean it's
so-
contingent upon us checking with the attorney? Okay, because I'm
No.
getting confused.
Contingent upon if FOIA requires that we provide it. Therefore, it would just,
But what's going to happen if it does?
Your contingency would be that we're not engaging them.
no, the contingency would be that we can't prevent them from looking.
And there's
You're
no,
saying your rule applies if the FOI law allows it. If it
Correct.
doesn't allow it, then it doesn't apply.
Correct.
That's what you're
Right.
Correct. Correct.
Did that motion include Mr. Scott's comments about allowing staff of pages?
Yes. Did you get that?
Could you guys repeat this motion because it's getting really complex? Yeah, we're
So-
like adding a lot of.
So basically,
I should brought my computer.
that we're going to be creating the requirements to utilize Metro Plan to create some maps that we're going to be creating the requirements for that, to engage pages to sit in. I forgot how you said it.
To be our designee.
To be our designee along with staff, and to not allow, unless FOIA requires it, for any Metro Plan board member to review maps prior to the County Board of Election Commissioners reviewing the maps. I think that's the mindset. All those in favor?
Let me add one thing. Or
The lawyer.
Let me inquire. Should we say it shouldn't be reviewed by anyone other than the staff that's working on it or our designees? We wouldn't want anybody, it being shared with anybody before us, would we?
Yes. Okay. Metro Plan staff, our staff, our designees, yes. Okay.
Did you read the thing one more
I
time?
did not write down the original
Okay.
one because we can watch the tape and it's
Okay.
so
Well, it's
And or
long.
listen to the
gotten so
recording.
complicated.
But we do know from watching this that we just have to revise that one,
Yeah.
that David just
No,
said.
that's excellent. Okay.
So maybe we'll be able
The
to.
motion is to engage with Metro Plan to draft maps per our requests,
Right.
and to have someone from Pages and/or staff participate in the process, and nothing is to be reviewed or viewed by the Metro Plan Board
Or anyone else.
or anyone else until we present them publicly in this
Right.
body,
Well stated.
by this body.
That's
Yes,
the motion.
that's the motion.
That's my
All
motion.
those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for coming and sitting through that. I know we just want to make sure that we cover all of our bases. And thank you, Melinda and Amanda. Appreciate that. So the next action item on this, with a couple. When is our next meeting?
November 2nd is our next scheduled meeting.
That's the
That's
school election day.
School election day. The one
Okay.
after that is November 5th.
We might want to do okay, I'll look at that in a minute, but we're gonna need to go ahead and get the memo together with we have this plan, so we can actually incorporate into the plan, but with the requirements, and we're gonna need to bounce that back and forth, if you can do that separately between the three of us, and that we make sure that we have a complete plan together, so that we have the requirements, so that we can approve those, and if we need to come together and do a quick 15-minute virtual meeting, that we of course give notice to, come up with a day that we can do that. I want to get that done as soon as possible, probably within a week or so that we can get that information over and get started. So, okay.
Yeah, like in this thing that you handed us today, the redistricting criteria approved by the courts lines out all of those items that we should comply with as we proceed.
So if you want to go ahead and get something started, when you find some time between the 10,000 things you're doing.
I'll do it right.
We all want them to get started.
We all want to get started.
Melinda, what's the source document for that?
This is, I actually pulled this from the Washington County website, and there was a couple others that I looked at, and basically I remember, like, if you look up the Voting Rights Act of 1965, it'll show you, it kind of, these are court cases that were brought up that the courts kind of look at. It's just some guidelines that if there is a lawsuit, this is kind of what the courts look at. It's not a definite, but I've always heard this through all three of the redistrictings that the
And
same
they
thing.
pulled that from GIS's website. So on GIS redistricting, Arkansas.gov,
Mhm.
whatever, under Shelby
And-
stuff, that all that information is on there. So the VRA information's on there. There's multiple statutes on there, and so we can pull from there as well. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we can grab that along that.
And David, I do plan on tomorrow, there's some things that I saw, like websites and this and that, and I want to get that out to you guys. I'll just load you down with information.
Because if
But,
we can make ours really concise, I think we should
Mhm.
share it with other counties, because there's a lot of counties that have been reaching out for help, and they don't, if we can try to help as we can and say,
Mhm.
here you go, that would be really helpful, I think, to them as well. So,
And I think at this point in time, the quicker we get a document on the website saying how we're going to do it.
so that's in we need to locate a place, Jody, redistricting tab. Or they will go somewhere that we're putting all this stuff, we can categorize it based on, different types. Because we want to make sure that we're letting people know where it is, how to get to it, and then we need to figure out how they can comment on it. Is there a way we could just create a form that they could just? I know we haven't switched websites, but could we just put a little form on there?
Let me look into that, because we changed a couple of years ago with the way that we did the online poll worker form, and so we no longer have a form that's directly associated with, it's like a prefab thing that was provided. I'm sure there's a way to do it, I just need to look into it.
Okay.
And tell you.
Because if we can try to gear all the public comments online, that will make it easier. Question? You look like you have a question. The deer in headlights. So, yes, ma'am.
So this, the maps won't be finalized probably until what, Christmas?
No. Once we have our meeting, get our stuff, we're gonna be pushing Metro Plan to give us a timeline, a time expectation, so that we can give that time expectation to the public, so that we can start having the comment period. And then we can establish a timeline to get that to the county circuit clerk, just to let her know, hey, this is when we're gonna get this to you, because she has a timeline to assign all those voters. So we wanna get that over as at least, my hope was at least by December 1st. At least 30 days in advance.
That's aggressive timeline.
I know.
Be great, but that's aggressive timeline.
So what if the legislative lines come in and we can get that done before we do this? I mean,
There's no way they're gonna be done before, November 15th.
oh, I'm sure they won't.
I mean, it's at least, the earliest is November 15th, most likely more like towards November 30th. So, that's, it's tough. Any other info, am I missing anything, Linda?
No, not on the redistricting.
Okay,
I have a couple items for other business.
okay.
So,
Are we gonna talk about another meeting to review that form that she's creating? Are we gonna do that?
So,
Or can we tell Metro Plan to go forth and prosper?
let's see here.
I'll work on the memo first thing in the morning and then get y'all's individual input on it. And then that way we'll have it ready to go to Metro Plan.
Excuse me, Commissioner Starks, I want to commend you all for y'all's hard work and commitment to public service, and thank you guys too. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you, I appreciate you
Because
coming.
I know y'all not getting paid to do any of this.
But we are.
We get paid to come to a meeting. That is the one thing we do get.
Okay.
So
Okay,
thank
take
you,
care.
ma'am. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Friday the 29th. Will that work?
What, 5?
5 p.m.?
That's fine.
It works for me.
Okay, great. So that is when we're going to try, and that's 1 week from Friday. Is that going to work, or is that a problem? They're making faces. Is it a conflict?
Would Thursday push you guys? Would that?
No, it won't.
I have my son in Easter Seals,
No,
and they've
no,
been
no,
locked
no,
down
no,
for
no,
COVID,
no.
and that might be the first Friday. I'm
No.
thinking, and so
We can do the 28th.
I hated asking. I was like,
No, we can do the 28th. We can do the 28th, everyone?
I'll do it. I can do it. My brother will be in town, but I think it'll work.
Yeah, I can do
I mean, I could even do Tuesday, the 26th.
No, let's just do the 28th.
Are you sure? Okay.
We may have a visitor in the room.
It should be a really quick meeting, because we'll have everything already done. It's basically just approving it and we get out, okay?
Yep.
All right.
I'm going to
So-
hold you to that.
And we'll be fast, and then we'll be able to get that over to you. And then hopefully by that Tuesday, maybe, we can maybe have a time expectation set following that? Okay. All right, thank y'all for coming. Y'all can go if you want. We have just a couple other items. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
It was Tuesday, right, at 5?
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay.
This is what happens when you don't drink your Mountain Dew.
I know, I need to go get it.
Just saying.
I'm slacking over here.
Okay.
First, we need to consider.
And then the next meeting after that is November 2nd.
Yes.
And that's going to be at 5.
7, no, that's like at 7.
We will have to
7 o'clock.
meet, we will have early voting going on, so we'll have to
Okay.
meet. We can probably clear a spot in the office, or
Oh,
we'll
that's
find
the-
somewhere
that's
for
the-
you guys to meet.
You know
Early
what?
voting.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm dancing around all these stupid physical therapy appointments. Hold on. Could y'all meet at 12 o'clock
On which day?
on that Thursday?
You talking about the 28th?
Yeah? Would that be okay?
Right. We'd still have to meet in the office.
I mean, that's fine, but what about meeting at 12?
It's fine.
Could you do that, David? Or 12:15?
I mean, I could be here at 12.
You want to do 12 since it'd be a really fast meeting?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's gonna be the 28th.
Yeah.
On the 28th.
Let's do that.
I'm just back in the office there. Okay.
That'll make it easier and then we're not.
And then November 2nd, that election day, which is also a vote center day here.
Mm-hmm.
You said that's 7 o'clock.
That's 7 o'clock. Okay, so what you got?
So for other business,
Uh-huh.
there's 2 items, and I'm just giving you, the board, a heads up on, we did, for the last election, for the city tax election, we did have a complaint
Okay.
filed, and I do not have all the details, but actually Chris Madison from the state board called to introduce himself and just kind of dropped that to let me know that I would be receiving the stuff. And the reason he told me is so that we can gather the items up that we're going to need. I was going to have the staff just pull the election supplies from that day that were returned, the election materials, provisional ballots and stuff. It had something just vaguely, he let me know that it was just the ID. People were going to vote, and there was a poll watcher at that site, and I guess they had seen that they would make them vote at whatever was on their license, the address on their license. And that, you vote where you live, so they should have let them vote. If they were living somewhere else and was stayed on the address by state law, they should have went somewhere else.
Okay.
And then the other was, I think the poll watcher challenged, and it did, the procedure wasn't, it was a poll watcher challenge. The procedure wasn't quite followed, or it sounded, I'm not sure that they followed the correct paperwork and all that. That's why we'll have to pull up everything.
Okay.
So, and just see, and I'll get his stuff, but he was just letting me know to, he'll send me an official document. So, but I wanted to let you guys know since I know. And it was at St. James, UNC. So.
Okay. Well, thank
And
you.
then the other item that he ran across me was the training, like the certification training, since we've had a staff change and everything, that if we would like to have them train, like me and Amanda, you guys, the board can appoint, approve that that's who you would like trained as far as certified workers. And I can call them in the morning and get us set up to be trained so that we have the current training from the State Board of Election Commission.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Do they have they don't have the new training ready yet, do they? They don't have the skills-based training ready yet, do they?
I don't think so. That was one of the things Amanda asked. She said, well, we need to do training again next year. And I said, I bet we will,
Yeah,
because
I think so.
everybody's still updating things.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Is there anything we need to sign or do?
I had mentioned to Chris, I said, well, can I just have them motion and adopt at the meeting our names? And he said, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And if there is anything you have to sign, I'll get a hold of you guys individually, if you approve it.
Can I
I'll
get a
make that
motion?
motion.
Okay. All those in favor to send Amanda Dickens and Melinda Lemons to the state board training to certify them?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's approved. Y'all can go get trained.
Is this training to be election officials, or is the basic coordinator?
The certified training.
Yeah,
The certified trainer for poll workers too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we had a need, which we don't now, an urgent election called, and you would be able to train poll workers at.
Right, and that was one of the things that I kind of had brought up to him. He actually called me back about the training, but I told him, I said, well, if we did have training, we've been in elections, I'm sure they're not going to be upset, but to follow the law and everything, we need to be certified.
Well, so Melinda does trainings for all elections.
Yes.
It's a crazy thing.
Well, see, and it kind of the couple items that they mentioned, you know, I mean, even if I worked every day, worked every day. If I was an election official and just worked elections, you forget things. So even the couple things, I told them, you know, we used to train, we actually had a section that showed them how to go through the poll worker challenge, and, you know, and I always ran them through it because they were always, a lot of people are scared of poll watchers, but they're just there to see the system. Usually they are, by the end of the election, everybody, you know, has a good time and tries to. But anyway, so that's, I think there's so many things to an election that they can't remember all of it.
Okay.
I think it helps to train.
Is there anything else?
I don't think so.
Did you have anything, Madam Clerk?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Did any online public comments?
This is past, and I think you guys addressed it, but Pat Landis has 2 comments, and these were early in the evening. Pat Landis' first comment says, the League of Women Voters of Pulaski County asks the commission to provide policy direction on the development of the maps consistent with the guidelines we emailed to the commission last week. Second comment, also from Pat Landis, when will the public be able to see maps that the commission will be reviewing at a public meeting? And you addressed that after she had asked.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Is there any public comments from the public in the audience? No? All right, so our next meeting, and again, thank you everybody for sticking around and going through this. Our next meeting will be October 28th at 12 o'clock p.m. in there, right? Okay.
Yes, I'll look for the best place.
Through the staff area, and we are adjourned. Thank you.